I'm Sam Rivera. I'm an executive producer leading the gameplay team in FC.
And I'm Gilliard Lopes. I'm a principal gameplay designer on FC27.
Last year, when the game was revealed, there was a trailer that showed a lot of fan feedback, and the general message was, we're fixing the things that fans have been asking about for a long time. Over the course of the game cycle, a lot of fans have come back to that trailer and said, well, we felt like it was fixed at the start and then things changed. Could you speak to the challenge of operating a live game where the version of the game that comes out in September isn't the same as the one that comes out in April, and how you manage fan expectations around that?
Of course, yeah. That is actually a big challenge, and we acknowledge that. And at the same time, I think it's good to talk about how difficult it is to interpret feedback that comes from such a wide variety of sources, a wide spectrum of players, and our responsibility for that any change that we make, that it is a positive one for everybody. And that's never an easy task to do. However, it's the job. It is what we signed up to do, and this is what we are promising to do more of in 27 by putting more resources against our live service structure, by having more ways to gather that feedback and tools to interpret that feedback. Because like I was saying earlier, it's one thing, the analogy I always like to make is the players are the patients. They're telling us what it hurts. And we have to play the role of the doctor and interpret those symptoms into what is the treatment, with a twist that as game designers and developers, we have to prescribe the same medicine for everybody at the same time. So that is the challenge, but again, it's also part of the job of having a live service game. And to that end, we are committing more resources than we've ever had in 27 to make sure we stay on top of the community sentiment.
Yeah, what I can add is that the direction that we took last year, that continues. Simply based on feedback, we need to do more. We need to make sure that those fresh experiences are not just at the beginning of the cycle. So we're working on new tools, for example, that allows us to keep providing fresh gameplay experiences throughout the year. The custom gameplay live events is the name of the tool. So we'll be talking more about it later in the year, but we're very excited about that. So in general, also, we learned that we need to collaborate more with our different, the live team and the FOD team, to make sure that we evolve the meta differently. For example, that we basically all the changes that you probably heard already about it. Sorry, in terms from the FOD presentation. All those changes have a big impact in how gameplay is experienced throughout the year. So personally, I'm excited about those changes, and again, it's doing more. We feel we're going in the right direction, but we're committing more investment into the live game for FC27.
And one of the big things you spoke about earlier is the new corner kick system and the new crosses. I found this interesting because people who have played these games for a long time will remember like the custom set pieces and being able to do that kind of thing, and that never really manifested in the competitive side because it could be quite easily abused and broken. How have you balanced this new custom corner kick system so that the same thing doesn't happen again with much more player control?
Yeah, I think you hit the key aspect there, which is balance and trying to avoid that it just becomes exploits. So what we did for FC27 with the new corner kick system, for example, is actually going back to the basics of what makes real footballers better or worse than their peers in the corner kick situation. And we found out that a lot of it was about movement. And that's really what we built into the feature this year. So once you take your kick, you have the input for the kick, you will have a little bit of time where you're controlling players in the box. And what you're trying to do there is express your skill in moving to the right position and arriving there at the right time, because timing is the other key aspect. So rather than it being a mechanic that is more, let's say, assisted, which is where we think could lead to more exploits. And honestly, one of the reasons why corner kicks were not a very frequent way to try to score, is because we had to tune it in such a way that you don't get too many goals from corners because there was hardly any skill. That's completely different in FC27. And with that free movement, the fact that we don't assist you into the position where the ball is going to come, you have to do that yourself, both as an attacker and as a defender. We believe that naturally it will bring out a balance by which you know what to do to get better at meeting that ball, whether you're attacking or the defender. So again, it puts the skill in front of maybe attributes or other aspects of winning that battle. And that's how we think it's going to be a balanced experience.
Yeah. What I can add is that we want to see more corner kick goals because now they require skill, but we don't want those to be the most common way to score or anything like that. We're going to be monitoring. After all, what we think should be the most common way to score is using different types of passes, dribbling, perhaps some skill moves, but good decision making to get into the box and then decide what's the best type of shot now that I'm inside the box to beat the goalkeeper. Yes, there should be variety, sometimes finesse shots perhaps out of the box or long shots, but we definitely every year we monitor that distribution to make sure there's some sort of balance. We did notice, corner kicks, there's too few goals from corner kicks, but it was for a reason. We were happy with that until we had a good mechanic, a good design to be able to add that skill. So now Gilly worked on that for months, and now we're happy with that balance. Of course, we'll monitor how to see how it gets used by players.
And can the old model be switched on, or is it always going to be this model?
It's always going to be the new model. And we believe just, because the design is all about skill, we understand that there will be a learning curve. We understand that players will have to get used to it. But even based on our internal testing, and of course, a great opportunity that we're having at this event to get in front of more people, we're confident that people will be able to climb that curve. And like Sam said, if there are snags along the way where we're not happy with the balance, there are levers we can pull within the current system, how it works today, to make it, to make adjustments. But I don't think we would be going back to the old system.
I wanted to talk about PlayStyles and PlayStyles Plus because I thought that the addition of that system worked very well, but it's clear that some in the community feel like it's become the be-all and end-all, and that it's essentially it disqualifies certain players from being usable in the late game meta. Can you speak to some of the changes that are coming to that system this year?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I think a lot of that sentiment just comes from the balance between the impact of playstyles and the effect of the attributes. And we're on this journey together with the community. We're listening to this feedback very clearly. And since FC26 and certainly continuing into 27, we have been working on every playstyle, virtually every one of them, to take some power away from the playstyle and back into attributes. Because what you described is the anti-vision for playstyles, that people look at certain players and they're just not usable because they don't have that one playstyle that's seen as indispensable to that role. Playstyles should be a way for you to express yourself. So my style of play is conducive to finesse shots or whipped crosses into the box. So I choose to play that way, and therefore the playstyle enhances my choice. But it shouldn't be a requirement. And then in FC27, there's a large number, I don't even know the exact number, but all the detail is in the pitch notes, the gameplay deep dive pitch notes, a large number of playstyles where we investigated their effects and made sure to rebalance the power that they have, moving more of that power towards the attributes.
What I can add is that we started last year, we moved some power, we heard feedback, that's not enough. We continued during patches. We heard feedback, that's not enough. We are continuing now. As I said, we're in the right direction. We just need to do more. And then we will continue monitoring. It takes time when there's millions of players playing the game every single day. As Gilly said, it's very difficult to just change one thing and then make everyone happy. So we need to be very careful with every decision that we make to tune things. And of course, the reality is we're building another game, in this case 27, while trying to balance 26. So it's challenging, but we are all passionate about the game. We're all doing the best we can. And again, for this year, the goal is to communicate more. The goal is to listen to even more feedback and commit more resources to make more changes and keep the game fresh.
I thought that the change to corner kicks was a smart reaction to how you look at the Premier League this season. There's a lot of discourse about corner kicks and how that works as a mechanic. Similarly, over the summer with the football, we saw a lot of fundamental changes to the game of football. The one I'm thinking of specifically, hydration breaks essentially becoming a 4-quarter situation. That's not an FC27, but when you're looking at things like that, is that something you're considering in the future, how the real world game changes mechanically and how that can be implemented? Because I know in the past, VAR has been around for a long time, but the FC doesn't stop for 10 minutes to do a VAR check. There's a shortened version of that. So how do you pick and choose what should be realistic and what shouldn't?
Yeah, that's a great question, because is that the core of designing simulation video games. Everyone virtually knows football and knows what football looks like. So to capture that in a video game is always a challenge, because we have to balance that authenticity, let's call it that, with fun and competitiveness and all of the other motivations that we have for players to play the game. So I'm actually a big fan of how considerate we are in every one of those decisions, in terms of if it doesn't make sense for the game, if it doesn't add value to the player experience, we don't feel like we're obligated to do it. And that philosophy, to me, is what drives our decisions, and it's the right one. And that's why some things like VAR you just don't see in the game, because we haven't found a design that actually adds value. And whether hydration breaks, I find it difficult to think of a design that would add value, honestly. But if there was one, perhaps. But really, I don't see that. Our focus, our mission, is to our players. It is not to, mimic the sport when it doesn't benefit and doesn't add value to the player. And to me, as long as that's how we're making our decisions, I think we're on the right track.
Absolutely. That's the key, and of course, prioritizing the different features. We have a big list of things that we want to do, and then when we look at the value that each of those add, then hydration breaks, I don't really know yet what design we could do around it, so we end up obviously prioritizing other types of features. But
would you rather a game of FC27 finish 5 each or nothing each?
5 each or nothing each. For me, it's a 3-2. That's the right score that I want. A 3-2. A little bit of action, not too much time.
Absolutely. Well, certainly anything but the nothing each. Okay, you could argue, maybe there was a fierce tactical battle that was a stalemate, but really, the goal is the pinnacle of football, and in a video game, there's nothing more rewarding than scoring a goal. So I would take scoring or conceding goals every time over a 0-0 scoreline.
Same in my case, if those were the two options, but obviously no. We try to create a different balance. When there's too many goals and it changes, every year is different. Also, sometimes it's very difficult to defend. It can be frustrating. We get feedback immediately from the community. If there's too few goals, the game is too defensive, everything is too tight, it's not fun, so we get the feedback. So ideally, there's a range in between most of the, 3 to per match, let's say, 3 to 6 goals, where we're like, okay, that should be the average. If there's a 5-5 once in a while, absolutely, it's okay. 0-0 once in a while, it's okay. But again, the game has to stay healthy. We have some health metrics that help us balance the different components of the game.
And just finally, you made a point in your presentation about a certain animation that was transitioning too slowly for the sake of aesthetics, for it to look good. A lot of players have complained that since the game has become so realistic, that arcadey, more mechanical focus has been lost. Is that something you're looking at as referenced in that animation? And is there a point where the gameplay leads it beyond the visuals lead it?
We're just looking for consistency in this case. Consistency in player speed, turn rates, all the player movement should be more consistent. That's one of the goals, because we've heard the feedback. Sometimes the gameplay is inconsistent, so we're looking for all those improvements. But at the same time, another pillar, it's visual quality. So it's always been a challenge. What do you prioritize? Responsiveness, consistency, or visuals? So as technology evolves, we're able to provide the best of both worlds. Of course, there's always trade-offs and all that, but this year, the goal is we think that the visual quality of the game is as high, but now we can be more consistent with animations because how our systems have improved. So that was the goal for 27. But then, of course, as more technologies, AI, and all that continues to arrive, and we use those, then the vision that we have for the future, without getting in details, is we have now more tools to create even more realistic football. So I'm excited. I don't know if there's anything else that you would like to.
I think you nailed it.
Perfect. Thank you very much, guys. And just before I go, the number one thing that people talk to me about in FC, and it's a challenging thing to fix, but I want to know if it's on your mind: kickoff goals. That phrase haunts every comment section, Reddit thread. Why do they happen so frequently? Is it a mechanical situation? Is it players not defending properly? Is there? Surely you're aware of the feedback that has been a problem in seemingly every game. And I know what you guys are like. If it was a simple thing, you would have fixed it already. So how do you approach that when a piece of feedback is so ubiquitous across the game?
Yeah, it's a great question. And because the game is a system, right? It's not like anything is choreographed. We couldn't, take one situation and say, let's fix this situation. It is a system. And typically, there are some edge case scenarios in systems that are hard to do something about without breaking the rest of the system. And it doesn't get more edge casey than, the one whole team is on one half and the whole other team is on the other half. So this is, just makes for a tricky disposition of players for the system to deal with that has been tuned for situations that are not like this, where the teams are, mixed up and your defensive line and your attack line aren't so close together. So that's on a really high level, one of the reasons. But then, when we go down to the specifics, it's almost like we're chasing a moving target. We're improving here, and then people find another way, and we're improving there. But I got to be honest with you that at least recently in FC 26, that thread, I haven't seen as much, complaints about that, and I think that's a result of us dedicating a lot of resources to plugging those gaps where we find them. But conceptually, it's a difficult situation for a system that's not necessarily built for that disposition to deal with, and that's why maybe it's counterintuitive to most people that it's so difficult to resolve. But in FC 27, we'll continue to monitor. This is a space that is always coming up, and if it does come up again, I'm sure we'll continue to try to improve it. But I think we've gone a long way already.
Yeah. I think the patch has helped. Of course, I think the first patch didn't help much, but then the second one really changed things around. Obviously, there are still people that think that is still happening too often, and we're listening. But as Gilly said, it's just a complicated thing. Perhaps in some cases, it's just the dribbling versus the jockeying. In some cases, it's the through balls. In some cases, it's the lofted through balls. And the runs and how the runs are marked. It's just so many different things that it's challenging. But as Gilly said, at 26, we haven't heard it as much as it was in the past. Yeah.